Hello and welcome back to the Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be finishing Urban Plague with the Wedge office, Love Town, and the general receptions. Let's start off with the Wedge office. Our first card is Transpierce. This is a 3-cost rolling 6 to 18 pierce, 2 to 7 block with the pierce dealing 5 damage to the target on hit. This page loses half a power compared to Crack of Dawn and trades to protection and burn for damage. Overall, they're very close. Crack of Dawn is slightly better, but Transpierce sees more use due to the key pages of the chapter, and it's a B+ like Crack of Dawn. Sparking Spears are 2 costs rolling 3 to 7 pierce and drawing a page on use. This is the kind of page I like to see in my decks. This is by far the best average 5 roll 2 cost with 2 dice, as compared to other pages that inflict some paralysis or bleed or give an emotion coin. This one draws a page, which is one of the most important resources. The clashing is worse than the best 2-cost clashes, but none of them draw a page, and as such, this is an A. Collision is next. This is a 3-cost rolling 4 to 8 pierce, both of them restoring 1 light on Clash Win. This page is quite similar to Hard Rehearsal. The offensive dice are a bit stronger, but it loses the guaranteed light restore and the evade die. Since the player selects clashes, they can put themselves in a situation where they're very likely to win, but it means that you're using 3 costs to beat utility pages, so it's not great. Dice type consistency does help, but this is on the same level as Hard Rehearsal and is a B-. Spirit Sweep is a 2-cost rolling 4 to 7 slash, 3 to 5 pierce with the slash dealing 2 damage to the opponent on Clash Win. Man, where do I start with this page? I have a personal vendetta against Spirit Sweep because I keep seeing people putting it into their decks despite it being a terrible page. Compared to Sparking Spear, you lose half a power overall, the page draw, and the dice type consistency for 2 damage on Clash Win. It's also worse than most of the other average 5 roll 2 costs with 2 dice because the effect is basically worthless. The main thing that gets me is that it's in the same reception as Sparking Spear, but people somehow put this in their deck instead of Sparking Spear. This is a C-, but know that it's an F in my heart of hearts. High Speed Stabbing is our next card. This 0-cost rolls 2 to 4 evade, 1 to 5 pierce. This page doesn't clash particularly well, but its free hitting isn't terrible, and as far as 0 costs go, this is probably one of the best ones that doesn't provide utility, but 0 costs that don't draw pages or restore light aren't worth using, and this is no exception, it's just a D-. Searing Sword is a 2-cost rolling 3 to 7 slash, 3 to 7 pierce, both inflicting 2 burn on hit. I actually like this page a reasonable amount as far as Drawn Plague 2 costs go. The 4 burn is a pretty good amount of damage, and I think it's good enough for it to be a C, but not quite for a C+. Feather Shield is another 2-cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 2 to 3 slash, with the blocks inflicting 2 burn on Clash Win. Again, I like this page a reasonable amount as far as defensive pages go. The 4 burn on the block dice make the damage pretty decent, and the rolls aren't embarrassing. I wouldn't put this page, or Searing Sword for that matter, in a non-burn focused deck, but again, like Searing Sword, this is a C. Faint Memories is a 2-cost rolling 2 to 8 evade, 2 to 6 slash, 2 to 6 blunt, but on use, if the user is on the brink, all the dice gain 2 power. Normally, this page isn't great. The strong evade works well to clash, so the subpar offensive dice can still hit, but in a brink deck, this page is absurd. 4 to 10, 4 to 8, 4 to 8 is 3-cost level rolls, and the placement is also great. Overall, that makes this page an S in a brink deck. Wrath of Torment is a 3-cost, rolling 2 to 8 blunt, 2 to 7 slash, but on use, the user takes 7 damage and all the dice gain 2 power. Rolling 4 to 10, 4 to 10, 4 to 9, this page punches well above its weight class. It can beat almost anything at this stage at the cost of only 7 HP. There isn't any utility on it, but the clashing power speaks for itself. This is a solid S-. Now we'll move into the general receptions. Want a taste of this chain is a 0-cost rolling 3 to 5 slash that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self-bleed next scene and restores 1 light. Overall, this is a fairly solid light regen. Being a 0-cost instead of a 1-cost makes it easier to cast and clean up, and while losing a bit of power in this self-bleed make it slightly worse in my opinion, it's still a B. Next we have You're Soft. This 1-cost rolls 3 to 6 blunt, 3 to 5 block. The blunt inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self-bleed next scene. This page has the same roll range as Cooking Prep, but has a worse effect. Considering this is 2 chapters later, that means this is just a D-. Frontal Dodge is a 1-cost, rolling 3 to 7 evade, 2 to 7 block. Pages that don't have any offensive dice need to be pretty impressive, and this isn't it. It's just an F. Flank Attack is a 1-cost, rolling 1 to 5 block, 4 to 7 slash. The slash inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self-bleed next scene. This page has the same roll range and effect as You're Soft, but with a bit more power on the offensive die. That makes it a bit better, but not enough for it to not be a D-. Here's My Chance is our next page. This is a 2-cost rolling through to 7 slash to 6 blunt. Both the offensive dice inflict 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 3 self bleed and the dice gain 2 power. Rolling 5 to 9, 5 to 8, this page is above average in clashing power, but you really want to be using this page to clash as the 3 self bleed is more damage than Wrath of Torment is dealing to you. It's not terrible, but while the lack of utility on Wrath of Torment was made up for by the ludicrous rolls, these ones are just quite solid, so this page is a B+. Head to Head is a 2-cost rolling through to 7 4 to 7 slash, both inflicting 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 1 self bleed next scene. Compared to Here's My Chance, we're losing out on a decent amount of power to avoid the 2 self bleed. Dice type consistency is nice, but it's still basically just Jeong Plague 2-cost, so it's a C. Now Die is a 3-cost rolling 1 to 8 blunt, 2 to 7 block, 3 to 8 slash. Both the offensive dice inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the page inflicts 5 self bleed next scene to give all the dice 3 power. Compared to Wrath of Torment, you're almost certainly taking more damage and getting a page that rolls 4 to 11, 5 to 10, 6 to 11. That's an average of 1 power more per die, but we're losing it on triple offensive, and again, taking a ton more damage from the 5 self bleed. I'm still a fan of this page because I like to roll high and self damage doesn't matter too much to me, but it's not nothing, so this page is just an A. Mend Weapon is a 1-cost rolling 1 to 7 pierce. On combat start, it boosts pierce dice power by 1, and on use, it restores 1 light. This is a pseudo 0-cost that rolls 2 to 8, which isn't an awful light power ratio, especially considering that you get to boost your other pierce dice, but it's a page that doesn't clash well, and it doesn't free hit well. The effect is also mostly minimal, and you'd probably just rather play another utility or clashing page, so this is an F. Stab and Detonate is next. This 2-cost rolls 3 to 7, 3 to 6 pierce, but if the first die wins a clash, the second die's max value is boosted by 3. Assuming you win the first clash, this page rolls 3 to 7, 3 to 9, which is decent, but 3 to 7 isn't an incredible roll, and since it's on clash win instead of on hit, this is just a C. Wet is another 2-cost. This one rolls 3 to 5 blunt, 2 to 8 pierce. The blunt restores 1 light on clash win, and the pierce gives 1 strength to the user next scene. If you win both clashes, this page is actually pretty good, but you're quite unlikely to win the first clash unless you're clashing into a utility page, so it's a bit unwieldy to use. If the effects were on hit, it might be a C or C+, but as it stands, it's only a D+. Refine is a 3-cost rolling 3 to 5 pierce, 2 to 4 slash, 2 to 4 pierce. The first and second die boost the max value of the next die by 3, and on combat start, it boosts pierce die power by 2. If you win all the clashes, this page rolls 5 to 7, 2 to 7, 4 to 9. Compared to Wrath of Torment, you're jumping through a lot of hoops for worse clashing. If you're casting another pierce page alongside this one, then it'll feel pretty good, but I think all that setup means this is just a B+. Low at Night, High at Day is a 0-cost rolling 2 to 6 pierce, and when discarded, the user gains 1 haste next scene. I don't know why they didn't specify next scene on the page, but I tested it this time. Anyways, you never want to be casting this page, and the utility is worse than pages like Stay Calm, so it's just an F. Relay is a 1-cost rolling 2 to 5 blunt, 1 to 8 evade. The blunt inflicts 1 fragile next scene on hit, and when you discard this page, you draw a page. This page is like Stay Calm and helps the discard archetype out. The 1 to 8 evade means this page isn't a disaster to free hit with, so it gets a C-. Flip the Table is a 2-cost rolling 3 to 6, 2 to 6 blunt. The first die inflicts 1 process next scene on hit, the second die inflicts 1 process next scene on clash win, and when discarded, all allies get 1 haste next scene. Casting this page is pretty bad, and haste isn't worth much even if it's all allies next scene. I think it's an F like Low at Night, High at Day. Shuffle Hands is a 2-cost rolling 3 to 6 block, 3 to 7 blunt, and on use, the user discards a page with the lowest cost to draw 1 page. The discard draw effect is slightly better than nothing in a vacuum, and if you're running Relay or Stay Calm and don't have other 0 or 1 costs in your hand, then it can act like page draw. That's a lot of setup cost to get a page that's worse than Sparking Spear, so it's just a D. Our last card is Sakura. This 3-cost rolls 2 to 6 evade, 2 to 6 slash, 2 to 5 blunt, but on use, if there are 4 more pages in hand, the user discards 4 random pages to boost the minimum value of offensive dice on this page by 3. This page is pretty bad. Even with the boost, its rolls aren't exactly what I expect from a 3-cost, and under ideal circumstances, you go neutral on your discard effect. If it boosted the power of all dice by 3, then it'd be a different story, but this page is solidly an F tier. In the next video, we'll be starting to cover the Urban Nightmare pages. I'll be doing it in 2 videos this time, with the first one covering the bottom row and the crying children, and the second video covering the index, smiley faces, warp corp, and general receptions. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.